swear, I swear, I swear.
Nope. That was a tough one to watch. Even worse to experience. If you find yourself in that situation too often and you're looking to change, you've come to the right place. Today, we're talking about engagement strategy. It's going to help you win more gunfights, so stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. Maverick here with another Call of Duty Warzone tips video. This is the first in a two-part series where we're going to be walking through gunfighting in Warzone. Part 1 is going to be all about when you initiate the attack. Part 2 is going to be when you have to respond to an attack that's been initiated. There's going to be crossover between the two videos ultimately because you're using gun skill in both, but there are certain things that you need to focus on in different situations. Any gunfight in Warzone has 3 distinct phases. We have the initiation, the exchange, and then the resolution. Most of our time is going to be spent talking about the exchange phase, but don't let that make you think that the other phases aren't important. You probably die more in the resolution phase than you think, and you make gunfights a lot harder on yourself because you don't pay enough respect to the importance of the initiation phase. The initiation phase is the time between when you recognize your target and when you fire your first shot. The initiation phase is all about positioning and trigger discipline. You want to make sure that you move into a spot with cover and you have an angle on your enemy, preferably waiting to fire until they're in a position where they have no cover. Newer players make the mistake of shooting the instant they see an opponent, when waiting a few seconds could result in their opponent being caught in no man's land, resulting in a really easy kill. If you are the initiator of an engagement, the initiation phase determines how easy or how hard your fight is going to be. Alright, the first tip we're going to have to win more gunfights in Warzone is when you're the initiator of the engagement, you want to be the one that picks the battleground. You'll notice I've stalked this player for a while now. I haven't engaged because I want to make sure that when I start the fight, I win it. He's now locked into a place with very limited cover and no outlets. In the early game with limited resources and really nowhere to go, it makes for an easy kill. My next tip to help you improve in your gunfights is that you need to understand that your loadout is what should dictate the way you take a fight. If you have predominantly long-range weapons, then you need to create distance. If you have a lot of resources, you can do a slow fight. In this situation, I've got limited resources with only 1 mag in my AR, but I do enough damage that I know I have to get in tight with this pistol and just hit shots. I didn't find the way I would have preferred to, which would have been edging through the windows on the outside with a longer range gun or a mid-range SMG. So play into the type of loadout that you have and let that be the primary decision maker on how and when you take fights. The next tip I really want to stress is maximizing pressure on your opponent without giving up an advantage that you have. This player moved in with a bounty, knows exactly where I am. The only thing that I've got is my ability to reposition and to be patient. Most people, when they get a few shots on somebody, want to rush after them as hard as they can like a bull in china shop and end the kill. You are better suited by keeping a high level of constant pressure on your opponent and allowing them to make mistakes or put themselves in a bad position because they don't have patience. Patience is a very important part of gunfights. You have to recognize your surroundings. You have to recognize if there are players around you that could third party you. But if you have the freedom to take a fight in the way you want and continually chip away at your opponent, do it in a slow and methodical way. When you're maximizing pressure, use the environment to your advantage. Here I've got the zone in a place where it's going to force or dictate movement, so I know where the player has to go. If I lose sight of him, like I did, all I need to do is create distance from the edge of the zone to where the new zone begins, and that player has to move through that space. My movement has maintained my positional and mobility advantage, while I've forced more pressure on him because of the storm. I pick him up down low, easy kill, and the only reason I was able to accomplish this was because I had patience throughout the gunfight. Let's keep talking about patience and pressure, because there's another focus that I have when it comes to these topics. First is recognize that pressure creates opportunities for movement. It's not just about getting a kill. You can use pressure, like dropping a cluster strike on somebody, knocking somebody, shredding somebody's armor, whatever it might be, to buy time to move into more optimal positions, like I do right here. Patience is really, really important. I promise you, the more flustered you can make your opponents, the more mistakes they will make. The more patient and calm you can be, the more gunfights you will win. Especially when you get down to the end game. You don't have to take every single fight or take every single shot you have the opportunity to. Here, you're going to see that I recognize the zone where I have to move. I'm going to take time to acquire the final opponents. Once I acquire the final opponents, rather than shooting and trying to clean up right away when there's all kinds of cover in front of me, I'm going to be patient, wait for the zone to start moving to cover my audio cues, reposition myself into the best possible position, knowing that just by doing that, I've made it near to impossible for this player to beat me. There's too much pressure moving in from the zone on the back end, and no cover for him to duck to while I'm applying pressure from the front. Here's an example of everything we've talked about so far, and then I'll add something in towards the end. You notice I'm in a 2v1 scenario. My duo partner is off in Timbuktu. I don't have any armor plates, so I'm allowing the loadout that I have, which is mid to long range, to dictate how I start this fight. I've now applied pressure by knocking an opponent. It gives me the opportunity to reposition and move and to get closer to my opponents to utilize the M13 more effectively. It's a short barrel M13, so the closer I am, the better I'm going to be with it. I'm also being very patient in the engagement and not trying to rush high ground where the two opponents are in a ring where they could have repositioned anywhere. I'm maintaining the low ground and just trying to chip away at my opponent. The next tip is to utilize subtle movements. Subtle shifts in repositioning make your opponent take an extra second to acquire you, which gives you more time to get on target and get a few extra shots in. Whether it's just chipping away their armor or getting the full-blown kill, doing this little shifts to change angles and depth makes all the difference in a prolonged gunfight. You want to make your opponent flustered. We talked about that a second ago. So the more that he has to get lost trying to find you or gets confused, the better chance you have that he's going to make a mistake. In this situation, he fails to get his buddy up. You can tell he's flustered by the way he moves and the way that he's shooting. Gives me the chance, even when I make mistakes right here with running out of ammo, to still come in and close out the 2v1. The next tip kind of falls in line with the idea of maximizing pressure, but more specifically, you want to force player movement. The more that you can get a player moving, the more prone they are to making mistakes. A player that gets hit and is able to settle into a cubby or a corner, heal up, whatever it might be, they start to relax and think rationally. Players that are constantly being shot at and constantly moving are always in a panic, and all they're doing is reacting. Players that are just reacting make bad decisions. Alright guys, there's my tips to improving your gunplay. I'm going to leave you with a pretty chaotic end game, and I'm going to put up on the screen little flashes of each time we see one of the tips that we talked about in play. If you get a chance, if you've enjoyed the content, please don't hesitate to drop a like or a subscription. I'll tell you, for a small content creator like me, it makes all the world of difference to see some of that stuff coming in. Otherwise, you guys stay safe, stay happy, and keep gaming.
Gas is inbound. Marking new safe zone. UAV overhead. Gas is moving. To the left, keep the pressure on.
Anybody need this?
Got gas inbound. Safe zone relocated. Got gas moving in. Safe zone. Gas is closing in. Five remaining. Gas is closing in. Relocating the safe zone. Gas is moving. Gas is closing in. Relocating the safe zone. Gas is closing in. That's a win. We took what was yours and made them pay for it.